The time is now 7 p.m. and I open this ordinary meeting of Council for September 2023. I open by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, waters and skies, the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to lands, waters, skies, and the contribution they make to the life and spirit of our community. We pay respect to elders past and present and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Item 2, present and apologies. We have all councillors in attendance and CEO, all officers in attendance also. Item 3, pecuniary interest and conflict of interest disclosures. Councillors, do I have any conflict of interest disclosures? No. Officers? No, thank you. Item 4, leave of absence of councillor. There is none. Item 5, public question time. Today, I advise that we've received 2 public questions, and these were received within Council's prescribed timelines and guidelines. Public question number 1 comes from the Queenscliff Community Association. Pardon me. David, would you like to read your question? I can read it out, although, as you'll note, I am still grappling with the back end of a cold, but I'd be very happy to read the question out on your behalf. With regard to the CEO report on Victoria's housing statement, including reference to the state government already gazetted changes to the Borough of Queenscliff planning scheme that could ultimately fast-track permits, densify the borough, eliminate councils from planning matters, and limit VCAT rights of review, can the CEO elaborate or detail the gazetted changes and likely or perceived impacts on the borough's unique heritage and protected open spaces and coastal land? In conjunction with the housing statement focus on increasing housing supply, including access to social housing, has the council been directed or has the state government suggested Crown land or open space sites for council to examine in order to address the above issues? And if so, what areas of the borough are being examined, and will consultation be a prerequisite in any decisions made? I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, and well done. Thanks for the question, David. So, council officers have reviewed the recent ministerial amendments and we've advised council that there'll be little impact, not no impact, but little impact on the current operation of the Queenscliff planning scheme following the changes. As you know, there's a couple of different amendments that went through. The changes introduced through Amendment VC 242 include provisions to facilitate development of significant housing projects, which would include some affordable housing, and support significant economic development. There's a number of steps before the Minister will step in and be involved, and the minimum trigger point for the application is in a non-metropolitan area is a price tag of about $15 million. So we don't think, or we certainly haven't got anything on our books of that value. The changes introduced through Amendment VC 243, which reduced the planning controls on development of residential dwellings, could have some impact in the borough. But as is the case now, a planning permit requirement for most residential development in the borough is triggered through the planning overlays rather than the zoning provisions, which currently protect heritage and character. So these protections don't change following the changes introduced through the amendment of the Borough Queenscliff planning scheme. So we're pretty confident that the majority of changes and the intent of the scheme changes don't apply to those areas that have heritage or character study or character overlays. With respect to the second part of the question, Council has not been directed by the state, nor has the state identified Crown land in the borough to investigate for the development of social housing. This remains consistent with the initial Homes Victoria Big Housing Build assessments, which saw no funding allocated to the borough as part of the minimum investment commitment to regional local governments. which was put in place to increase social housing in local government areas. So the state doesn't really consider us as a viable option for that type of development at this point in time. Yep. So, through you, Mayor, MAV, on behalf of the sector, made a number of submissions, but they were blind submissions. No one was aware of the proposed changes until they were released, including the local Minister for Local Government. So we understand that there continue to be some, through MAV, some feedback to the state government, but the intent, as per the ministerial amendment, was that they were put in place and that they wouldn't really be rolled back once they were put in place.
And David, councillors have also sought that a public statement on behalf of the borough be issued to summarise the likely impacts or lack thereof of the housing statement to our area. So that will be coming in future weeks. The second question comes from David Connolly in a personal capacity. Are you happy for me to have a crack at doing a dignified reading of this? It is noted in the current quarterly report that Council allocated $120,000 for a new tree management system as part of the 2022-23 budget. Development of databases and spatial data are underway. The tree management system will apply to all trees in formal parks, council caravan parks and the Avenue of Honour, with potential to extend to all council managed trees. Is this the tree management works awarded to the contracted tree removers and pruners, or is that under a separate contract? Will watering of trees be part of the maintenance over the summer? And I will invite Stuart Hanson, our Manager for Infrastructure and Environment, to respond.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tolhurst and councillors. The budget allocation of $120,000 is dedicated to deliver a software system to support Council's tree management systems. Council has selected Connect, an asset management tool which can be used for tree management as well as the management of other asset classes. Within this budget allocation, Council has also engaged specialist consultancy support. Sorry, I'm just jumping around. Within this budget allocation, Council has also engaged specialist consultancy support for the mapping of tree assets and custom development of software systems to be used to manage Council's tree management systems. Council's tree management software systems will capture and record all tree... Sorry, I'm just jumping around with...
Stuart, would you like to use the printed version?
Oh, this is not on the printed version.
I know. But in lieu of being able to access the changes, would you like to refer to the printed copy? It's here if you need.
That's all right, thank you. The tree management software systems will also capture and record the completion of all recommendations undertaken by Level 3 arborists contracted to undertake tree maintenance works, including tree pruning, lopping, removal or remedial work. Tree maintenance works will be contracted separately to the development of the tree management software systems. The avoidance of a conflict of interest is also considered in the procurement of arboricultural advice and the procurement of tree maintenance works. With respect to the watering, Council proactively waters trees in accessible areas during their initial establishment phase after planting. Watering is not undertaken in areas that are less accessible, as planting is undertaken in numbers that assume a level of attrition. Council does not routinely water established trees under normal circumstances. Watering of significant trees would be considered on a case-by-case basis in periods of extreme drought. Thank you.
Stuart.
It's not finalised. It's It's being built, the mapping's in progress, and we're looking to pilot on a small sample of assessments in the January-February time period. No.
That brings us to the end of public question time, and I do apologise in addressing 5.2, item 5.2, I didn't get to item 5.1, which was public question status update, and there was no public questions outstanding. That brings us to item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. 6.1, ordinary meeting of council held 23 August 2023. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 23rd of August 23 as distributed be confirmed as an accurate record. Do I have someone to move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Ebbels. And a seconder in Councillor Griggar. Did you wish to speak to the motion at all, Councillor? Councillor pardon me, Councillor Griggar, did you wish to speak to the motion at all? No, thank you. No. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. Passed. Item 6.2, ordinary council meeting held on 26 July. The confidential minutes, and this item was deferred from our last meeting. So the recommendation as it appeared then appears here, and that is that the confidential minutes held on for the ordinary meeting held on 26 July are distributed and are an accurate record. So do I have a mover? You can't, you were absent. Councillor Minty, thank you. Councillor Griggar is our mover. I'm happy to second that. And then all in favour? 2 absent. Thank you. So passed. Oh, so passed. Are you voting? Great. Yeah, put it to the vote. Item 6.3, Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on September 12, 2023. The recommendation here is that the minutes for the ARC meeting held on 12 September 2023 as distributed are an accurate record and be confirmed as such. I'm happy to move that as an attendee of that meeting, and I can see a seconder in Councillor Griggar. All in favour of approving the minutes? Thank you, so passed. Item 7, record of informal meeting of councillors. A record of informal meeting of councillors is included at the adjunct to item 7, and the recommendation is one I'm happy to move because I wish to move a correction with it, and that is that on the meeting of August 23, 2023, between 3 and 3:30, the subject matter says that we discussed the active transport next steps. However, this was an item for consideration in the ordinary meeting that evening, and we didn't discuss the next steps, rather we discussed public questions received for the meeting, many of which were about the ATS. I just think that's an important clarification. Do I have a seconder for that recommendation with an amendment? Thank you, Councillor Ebbels. All in favour? Thank you, so passed. Item 8, notice of motion. 8.1, notice of motion status update. No notices of motion are outstanding. 8.2, motion on notice. No notices of motion were received. Item 9, petitions and joint letters, none received. Item 10, functions attended. So council was represented at the following meetings between 17 August and 20 September 2023. The recommendation is that the functions attended report be received. Do I have someone to move that, please?
Mayor Tolhurst, I'm happy to move that with the following change, if that's all right.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just one change on the 14th of September, the Queenscliff Royal Australians for Refugees, the Yet to Come Forum. I did also attend that with the Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, and with that change, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ebbels. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Minty. Put that to the vote then. All in favour of adopting with the changes? Thank you, so passed. Item 11, Chief Executive Officer. 11.1, CEO Report for September 2023. I'll hand over to Martin, should he wish to talk through this report.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I won't spend too long on this. I just want to note that we've had a question about the planning this evening, about the planning reform this evening, and we're, as the Mayor has already indicated, we'll continue to provide information as it comes to light, and we get a better and deeper understanding of what the changes are. Otherwise, I'm happy to take the report as read and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Martin. The recommendation is that the report for September be received. Can I have someone to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Grigor. Someone to second it. Thank you, Councillor Minty. Are there questions for the CEO? With that, I'll simply put it to the vote. So all in favour? Thank you. Oh, did you vote? Thank you. So passed. Item 12, Health and Wellbeing. There are no reports to consider. Item 13, Environment. No reports to consider. Item 14, Local Economy. No reports to consider. Item 15, Heritage Planning and Infrastructure. We have our planning permit report, activity report at item 15.1, and thank you, Tim, for assuming the lectern. Over to you to take us through that report.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. In relation to the planning permit activity report up until 18th September 2023, I'll take the report as read. I'll just add a couple of comments. In relation to the planning permit for the address of 6 McDonald Road, Councillors received a briefing on this application on the 13th of September, and we'll be presenting a report to Council at the October meeting. In relation to the VCAT hearing for 5 Beach Street, no decision has been made by VCAT at this point. It was anticipated it would be around 6 weeks since the time of the hearing, but that's still yet to be made, but we'll update Council and the community when it comes to light. And just another matter in relation to a recent planning scheme amendment, VC 246, in relation to the container deposit scheme centre that was gazetted on the 26th of September 2023. Some key highlights of this are that a planning permit is required for a container deposit scheme, not for signage if it meets certain criteria. There's strict conditions around the location and size of the CDS. There's obviously benefits to the community in relation to recycling, and we will update the community as this progresses in relation to the Borough of Queenscliff.
Thank you very much, Tim. The recommendation is that the planning permit activity report be received. Do I have someone to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Grout. And a seconder in Councillor Ebbels. Councillor Grout, did you have further questions or wish to speak to the motion?
Just a couple of questions. So the first is 6 McDonald's Road. This was an issue that the council called in some months ago now, and I wonder if you can give us an update on that.
The update is we obviously, council requested a ecology report. I think at the last meeting we said there'd been some time getting that, but that was presented to councillors at the briefing on the 13th of September, which essentially was some more information in relation to the applicant's report around impacts on ecology. So we have that information, which was presented to councillors at that briefing, and now that will be put together in a report by the senior planner, and in relation to that planning permit, it will be presented to at the council meeting in October.
Right, so that's coming to us next month.
Correct.
And my second question was, is about the arrangement, because we last Christmas time, we sort of got tripped up a little bit on the timing of planning applications and then being able to get briefings. And I wonder if at this stage you could indicate what the arrangements will be for this Christmas period, say from December to February, if applications are presented in, say, December, and if there are going to be opportunities to receive briefings or perhaps call matters in over that 2-month period so that we don't get tripped up by the timing for processing of applications.
Certainly, Councillor Grant. So the arrangements we've made is that in January, when there'll be no council meeting, we'll provide a written update to councillors, essentially an abridged version of a report, so you'll be able to view what's been happening in that space. If there was a matter that council called in at the December meeting, we would arrange a planning review meeting around when appropriate parties could be called together in between the February meeting so we can progress that.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Councillor Ebbels, did you have any questions?
Just a couple of things. Firstly was, it's nice to see that we finalised double the new application, so it was nice that if you can just pass on to your team the processing, it's really good, so thank you. And just quickly, just want to clarify with 6 McDonald Road, so we got a briefing from the peer review. Would people who object, would they be receiving a copy of that report as well?
Yes, so what we've done since that briefing, Councillor Ebbels, is that the senior planner has been in touch with objectors and also the applicant and made that peer report available to them. And then that will form the basis of the senior planner's report to council next month.
Any further comments or questions from councillors? No, I'll put it to the vote then that the report be received. All in favour? Thank you, so passed. Thank you, Tim. That brings us to item 16, governance and finance. 16.1, the fourth quarter implementation update for the annual plan 2022 to 23. I think the CEO is taking us through this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'll take the report as read, but I did want to just bring your attention to part of the report that talks about the fact that there are a number of projects that have been carried over or that we are still working through. Sometimes lists can look worse than they actually are. There's a lot of work that's been done on a number of those projects, and a number of those projects are very significant projects that will provide some strategic direction for council for a number of years. So I just wanted to re-emphasise that point. Otherwise, it was a good end to a very interesting year, and we're looking forward to finish up some of the projects that are unfinished and getting stuck into the projects for 23-24.
Thank you, Martin. The recommendation is that the council note the quarterly report update for the period 1 April to 30 June 2023. Do I have someone to move that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griggar, and someone to second it. Thank you, Councillor Minty. Councillor Griggar, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Mr. CEO, just for future reports, with the actions that are actually with the status of in progress, would it be possible to be actually very helpful for the community and councillors to know how far is that action progressed, as in a rough percentage guidelines? It just lets us know, like how much work or, the workload there is for the officers.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Greer, I think it's a good suggestion. We're happy to update the report to reflect that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griggar. Councillor Minty, did you wish to speak to the motion? Other councillors, did you have questions for Martin or a desire to speak for or against this motion? Martin, I'll just ask one question around the establishment of the Environmental Grants Program. And my understanding was that we had sort of put the environmental grants into the broader community grants program. And I wonder if the wording might be might be altered or amended to achieve that, as opposed to saying it hasn't been achieved, it's really just been incorporated elsewhere.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, and it's a good pick up, and we do think it's been incorporated, but we left it in because we hadn't really tied it off with the councillors themselves. But yeah, if the councillors of a review that it has been incorporated, we're happy to say that's been achieved. Yep.
I'm happy to move that as an amended motion yep. So the recommendation is that we receive the update, and I'll make the suggested amendment that for the action establishment of environmental grants program to assist community groups with vegetation projects, that in the comments section, the edit be made to reflect that this has been achieved by incorporation in the broader community grants program. Do I have a seconder for that amended motion? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
thank you, sorry. Councillor Grigor in seconding, and I'll put it to the vote then. All in favour? Thank you, so passed. That brings us to item 16.2, 2022-23 quarterly report, quarterly financial report at 30 June. And I welcome our Manager of Finance and Corporate Services, Guy Hahn, to take us through this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take the report as read, but I would like to add a few comments about the financial results for 22-23. Council achieved an accumulated cash surplus of 962,000 for the 22-23 financial year, which was an 774,000 increase on the forecasted cash surplus. So this substantial increase can be attributed to primarily two factors: the early receipt of the financial assistance grant and some savings in our operating expenses. So if we exclude the advance payment of the financial assistance grant, then the accumulated cash surplus for the year would have been 547,000. Based on the local government's performance reporting framework definition, Council reported an underlying deficit of 607,000 for 22-23 year. We know in simple language, underlying result means the difference between operating income and operating expenses, which includes depreciation expenses as well. So as detailed in the reconciliation provided on pages 7 and 8 of the quarterly financial report, this deficit is largely driven by the capital expenditure totaling to 773,000, which we had to reclassify as operating expenses, not meeting capitalization criteria as per accounting standard. So if I provide a bit of context to that figure, because it's a significant figure, during the financial year, Council capitalized a total of 12.8 million capital expenditure incurred during multiple years in relation to major capital project which we completed within the 22-23 financial year. In doing so, expenditure associated with temporary fencing, rent for temporary location, expenses related to some temporary storage requirement, landscaping, and with those projects, Council had incurred some expenditure in relation to the assets managed by third parties, and other operational costs incurred as a result of those projects had to be reclassified as operating expenses, because as per the accounting standard, we can't capitalize those. So in summary, if you take the total amount that we reclassified as operating expenses, it's like 6% of the total capital expenditure that we have incurred throughout that project period in relation to all of those projects. So in summary, there's no any additional cash outflow, and as such, and this is like purely an accounting adjustment. And the other thing, if you take that 773,000, so majority of those expenditure were grant funded. So if you look at the underlying result based on recurring basis, so meaning excluding all non-recurring transaction, including any accounting adjustment, and after adjusting for the timing of operating grant, the result would have been a surplus of 402,000 for 22-23 as detailed on pages 7 and 8 of the quarterly report. In terms of the balance sheet, council has 0 debt, and the other reserve balance was 8.3 million as at 30th June 2023, of which 1.2 million is our general reserve balance and 1.7 million represent the asset replacement reserve. Council's recommendations is on page 39 of the agenda.
Many thanks, Gihan. The recommendation, as you rightly say, is on page 39, and that is that the quarterly finance report be noted to June, the report to June 30, 2023 be noted. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Grigor, thank you. And Councillor Minty, our seconder. Councillor Grigor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
No worries. Councillor Minty. Other councillors, do you wish to speak? Thank you. Councillor Ebbels.
Thank you, Mayor Tollers. Thanks, Gihan, as per always. I'm just following up we've got 5.9 in unrestricted cash reserves, which I now understand, so 3.5 of that is the Murray Road, which we sort of put to one side. So given my good West Tech maths, we've got about 1.8 million in unreserved funds. Is that how that works? On the top of your report.
In total, we have, this is in relation to the cash and investment. So in total, we have 11.2 million cash balance.
Yep.
So then now how we have allocated it, of that 11.2 million, 5.3 million has been designated for specific allocation, like specific capital projects that we have identified. So that 5.3 million include 3.5 million that we have got from the sale of the Murray Road land. Yes? So that means the balance is not allocated for any specific purpose.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. That's what I was just checking whether it's been, it certainly hasn't been allocated anywhere.
Thank you, Councillor Ebbels. Other councillors wish to comment, speak for or against the motion? Nope. Otherwise, I'll put it to the vote. Then all in favour? Thank you. So passed. That brings us to item 16.3, 2022-23 Annual Financial Report at 30 June. And Gihan, you're still with us to talk us through this item as well. Thank you.
Madam Mayor again. Sorry, before I start, I need to propose a correction. On the page 47 of the agenda, in the last paragraph, we refer to 5.2 million in 2 places, and that needs to be corrected as 5.3 million. So it's rounding and typing error, so I apologize for that mistake. And subject to that change, again, in the previous agenda report, so I provided an update about the financial results. But one thing, when we prepare the annual financial statement, we need to follow general purpose financial statements, which is included in the model financial report provided by the local government Victoria. So we can't be creative and change it to really provide the information in a more user-friendly manner. So we had to be careful when we interpret the annual financial statement, because especially when you try to relate it to us, it can be misleading. So good example, if you look at the comprehensive income statement, we see a 772,000 comprehensive loss for the 22-23, but whereas for the previous financial year, it was a 41.2 million surplus. It's purely because of this revaluation results, and those are very much accounting adjustment. But nevertheless, I think as we have summarized on the agenda paper, so if we look at the financial statement through the financial sustainability indicators used by the Auditor General's Office to ascertain the financial sustainability of the council. What we can see, the Bara's performance will fall into the low risk category in all of those indicators except for the underlying result. But again, when it comes to underlying results, now we know there are a couple of factors which really influence that underlying result. So if you look at even underlying result within that context, that also will fall into the low risk category. So in addition to the annual financial statement, so this agenda paper covers the performance statement. So each council in Victoria must report against 28 performance indicators. And especially the service performance indicators in that performance statement show how council has performed against some key services that council provided to the community. So overall, council has performed well against all of those performance indicators. This is especially evident when the performance is considered in conjunction with the supporting comments that we have provided for a better understanding of those results. In addition to that, this paper covers governance and management checklist. So there are 24 qualitative measures that is being used to assess the governance framework of the council. So for the 22-23 year, again, the council has met all of those governance requirements. The Auditor General Office has audited our annual financial statement as well as our performance statement. And in principle, they have given the clearance, and we expect that the Auditor General's Office will issue an unmodified audit opinion about our financial statements. Even our Audit and Risk Committee has reviewed, and they have even approved this financial statement and the performance statement. The recommendation is on page 45, Councillor.
Many thanks, Gihan. The recommendation is a 5-pronged one. Do I have someone to either move or amend it? Thank you, Councillor Grant. And someone to second that? Councillor Minty. Councillor Grout, do you wish to speak to that motion?
Yeah, well, I'll just move as printed, as these recommendations are printed here. And note, I'm moving this because Councillor Donny Grigau and Mayor Tolhurst are both being authorised by us to sign the document. So, and in moving this, I'd like us to make the changes that you referred to about the specific allocations on page 47. As described by Manager Finance. So I move.
Thank you, Councillor Grout. Councillor Minty, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well done, Gihan, again. Could you please, for the purposes of the gallery, just quickly run through the what happens with the documentation and your connection with the auditors and how they then respond and where it goes to then through the department? Sign off.
To you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. In terms of the audit, what happens, like, so Auditor General Office, they have appointed a contracted audit firm to audit our financial statement and performance statement. So during the audit, what they normally look at it, first they look at whether we have correctly accounted for our transactions. And this, during the audit, they pay a lot of attention the way we have accounted for those projects, the way we have capitalized, because at the end of the previous financial statement, at the end of the previous financial year, we had closer to 10.1 million in our work in progress account to represent those ongoing projects. It was a significant value. So now it has come down to even less than 1 million. So auditors did a very thorough audit to see whether we have properly capitalized our expenses. That is about the transaction. And the other thing what auditors look at it, whether there's anything to doubt about the going concern of the council. So that is a terminology auditors use, but it's in terms that is the financial sustainability of the councils. So that's the other thing auditors check, whether there's anything to worry about the going concern. So they have done that part. They have reviewed that, and they have not highlighted anything that will impact the going concern of the council. So now they have provided those, they are finding recommendation to Auditor General's Office, And then the Auditor General Office also asked some questions, so they have sent those queries to us, so we have responded. So in principle, we have got a draft conclusion from the Auditor General's Office saying our financial statement as well as a performance statement fairly represent our financial position and the going concern, the financial sustainability of the organization. Now, once Council approve the financial statement, so we have to submit it again to the Auditor General Office, and then after that, they will issue the final report.
Thank you, Councillor Minty. Do other councillors wish to speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Grigor.
I'd like to thank yourself and the finance team for your work, and it's very efficient. But just like some information, how is our investment going on the ICT program and with the finance team? Is it delivering the positive outcomes and productivity increases for your workload?
Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Gregor, for that question. We have been making a very good progress with that project, and again, we have managed that project well within the allocated budget. In terms of the workload, yes, it has generated additional workload, especially for the finance team. It is like a one-off challenge because we don't expect same thing to happen every year. So to put into a very simple context, so when we were doing the last financial, when we were managing the year end of the last financial year, we had to work with 2 systems. But this recent one, we had to work with 5 systems. So same time, the finance team had to put the effort to really train the other users about those new systems. So it has been really a challenge, but with the support of everyone, finance team has done a really good job to manage those competing deliverables.
Through you, Mayor, can I just prompt you? I think Councillor Grigor is interested in, do you see productivity improvements with the new system and benefits for the new system?
Yes, definitely. And already we have seen some areas where it has, on ongoing basis, which has brought in some efficiencies. Already we have noticed that. But again, having said that, because it's a learning course, so it will take a bit of time for us to really settle with the new system. So then we will be more sure of those efficiency gains that we'll be able to achieve. Because based on what we have seen so far, yes, there are promising results that we would be able to achieve eventually.
Excellent. So if there's any other problems, let us know and we can help solve them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grigor. I'd just add congratulations and thanks to you and your team. Gihan, you didn't just get clearance, you got a resounding review from the auditors, not just on the final outcome, but on the process of working with you, how open and easy it was. So I'd like that to be acknowledged in this meeting. If there are no further comments, we'll put this recommendation as presented with the slight amendments made by Councillor Grout to the vote. So all in favour? Thank you, passed unanimously. Many thanks. Item 17, signing and sealing of documents. There are no reports to consider. Item 18, questions without notice. 18.1, questions without notice status update. No questions without notice are outstanding. If we can have a bit of quiet in the gallery, please. 18.2, questions without notice. I now call for questions without notice from councillors. It appears that there are no questions, so we'll move through to item 19. That's unusual in the past few months. A list of council meetings is presented in our agenda, including a planning review meeting if required, and at the next councillor listening post at the Queenscliff Market on Sunday the 29th of October. Item 20 is closed session of meeting, so I'll now close the meeting to the public to consider the following confidential items. That's 20.1, event sponsorship application 2023, and item 20.2, the CEO interim performance review. So the Thank you, Councillor Ebbels. Anyone to second that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Grout. So with that, I ask our public members to leave as we consider these items. Many thanks for your attendance, online and in person. Oh, pardon me. We will need to put that to the vote. So all in favour of closing the meeting at this point? So just clear show of hands if there's favour for that. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Thank you, Jackie. My apologies.